Hey, Sonny,
Yes.
how about a 30-minute?
Well, Georgia tells me she's got to have 10, so
Oh,
that's,
gosh,
you know.
Georgia. Just give her what she wants.
Actually, sometimes I want.
She wants our time. She wants our time.
3 minutes.
My time is a rare commodity in today's world.
I would like to have dinner at 8 o'clock.
Now,
Yeah, that's just apparently that's the way.
these
I
obviously
would like
cost
to have
money.
dinner
You
at
want
8
mine
o'clock.
back?
I think you're gonna be a little later.
Maybe.
Ross will
Really?
do a lot of talking, I think.
All right.
Why do you think that?
Folders we got.
Well, I got your letter.
Asset recovery program.
That's what she's talking about.
Cool. There you go. I've got a bunch of stuff at home.
A few commissioners could probably just keep it.
Okay, I'd like to, let's, regular Public Health and Safety Committee meeting of the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners for February 2012 call to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the clerk will call the roll, please.
Gilman,
Here.
Inman,
Here.
Henschel,
Yes.
Lemkool,
Here.
Richardson,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
Max Bauer,
Present.
Fleece,
Present.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. All here. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the November 2nd meeting, remembering that we did not have a public health and safety meeting in either December or January.
Right. I'll move that the November 2nd, 2011 regular session minutes be approved as presented.
Second.
Motion by Inman, supported by Henschel. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. See, motion approved. The clerk will read the rules for public comment.
Any person shall be permitted to address the meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. 1. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. 2. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Having heard the rules for public comment, is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? There will be a second opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting, and during where the opportunity will be given when we're discussing specific issues on the agenda. Go ahead.
Andy Merrick, 2875 East Railroad Avenue. I want to thank the commissioners for allowing me to speak this evening. I have to say I'm amazed at how much information you have to process every week to do the duties of the business of the county. I do, however, wonder if some of the commissioners try to bite in too much on the day-to-day business, try to micromanage, so to speak, the business of the county. I admire the dedication you show for the job that you've been elected to do by the people. I admire the passion for the information and data you request from the staff to be able to make the decisions you have to make. I wonder if in that process of doing what you believe is best, you may be micromanaging the staff to the point that's making it more difficult for them to do the tasks that they're assigned to, instead of letting them do what they've been employed by the county to do. I don't know the truth about the article I read on the Record Eagle on Tuesday, but I'm concerned about how it portrays the relationship between the board and the county employees. I'm concerned that some of the commissioners' well-meant intentions will hamper Jen Seaman's ability to quickly and accurately filter through the candidates for the full board of commissioners to interview for the county administrator. I hope that you will think back a few weeks ago when you agreed to task Jen Seaman with the duties of going through the application process, sorting out the top candidates for the full board of commissioners to interview, and complete the hiring process. I hope that you realize that you have plenty to process in the commission of your job, and that Jen Seaman has been tasked with a duty that has huge consequences for the future of Grand Traverse County. Hope that you as commissioners give Jen Seaman and her staff the guidelines as to the characteristics and qualifications that you're looking for in a candidate for the future county administrator. Hope that you let her do her job that you have all agreed she is qualified to do. Hope that you agree that with the statements made by the commissioners and the resolution which passed unanimously to task her with and the HR department with the process of sorting through the resumes. I also hope that the commissioners will allow the county's Human Resource Department to perform the tasks assigned by the Board of Minimal Interference. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the approval of the agenda. I have two items that I want to speak to. Under receive and file, you received the Commission on Aging report, and it's my understanding that Lori and Sharon's going to do it. Anyway, is going to do a brief presentation about the senior center and where that's at. So we will take that after the consent calendar. And then on your desk tonight is a couple little housekeeping issues in regard to appointments to the boards. Basically what this is, we missed this last week when we did the rest of them, or last month when we did the rest of them. This has to do with appointing Bill Rokas to the Building Authority and the county treasurer and the county planner to the land bank. Those are required to be on those positions, but we did not reappoint those positions. And also a confirmation that Dean Bott will fill the vacancies of the seats when Dennis leaves on the committees that Dennis is assigned to. So we'll do that under unfinished business, if that's all right. Great. Ross?
Move for approval of the agenda as amended.
Support.
Moved by Richardson, supported by Fleece. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion opposed, the same. Motion carried. We have no special orders of business. This brings us to the consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file. 1. Commission on Aging Monthly Report for December. 2. Commission Corrections Monthly Report for December. Approval. 1. Public Health and Safety Committee meeting dates for 2012. 2. Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office property surplus requests.
You have heard the consent calendar. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to pull any of these items? Any commissioner wishing to pull an item?
Move for approval.
Support.
Motion by Thomas, supported by Limcool to approve the consent calendar as provided. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. At this time, I will take the opportunity to allow the Commission on Aging to report on the Senior Center.
Okay, Lori Wells, Grand Traverse County Senior Center Network Director, and this is Sharon Newman, our Outreach Coordinator for this Grand Traverse County Senior Center Network. We wanted to just kind of give you an update to let you know where we're at with things. And a few months ago, we gave you a 5-year plan to let you know what the order of business was going to be, and so we're here tonight to report on that, just to let you know where we're at. In your packets, and I will take those packets back if you don't want them, but if you look through them, there may be information that you are interested in, that you may have constituents to pass out to, or neighbors, friends, whatever. This packet is given out to new members when they join the Senior Center Network, and last year we had 900 of them, so we expect to have a lot this year as well. But there's a 2012 Senior Directory, and this is a directory of many, many services available to seniors in Grand Traverse and surrounding counties, so it's a very valuable resource. There is also a brochure for the Commission on Aging and Senior Center Network. There is this pink thing that all you men might want to grab. We have sent you an invitation to dance with the ladies on Valentine's Day, and if we haven't heard from you, I know we're going to very soon, but we want you to come and dance with our ladies on Valentine's Day. And then some of the other things are just flyers of things that are going on in the Senior Center Network. But if you don't want it, please give it back. So also in your packet is the 5-year plan, and for 2011, the first page shows all of the things that were accomplished relative to the Senior Center Network, and I'm not going to go through each one individually because you can look at those and certainly ask if you have any questions. But basically, in the last 6 months, we've hired all the staff that were planned for, and we have 2 programs going on in the outlying areas. We have Kingsley going on at the Rock, and we have at the Golden Fellowship Hall in Interlochen program going on there as well. And, of course, everything that's going on in Traverse City. So in 6 months, we've got a lot done, a lot accomplished, and we've got big plans moving forward, which are also included in your packet, the plans for 2012 through 2015 that the COA board is going to be looking at and approving, but that's kind of giving you an idea of our direction. I'm going to have Sharon speak to the activities and some of the dynamics going on in the outlying areas, and then, of course, if you have any questions, we'll certainly field those as well.
Thank you, Lori. First, I want to express my thanks to all of you for the opportunity and privilege that I have in this very new position in Grand Traverse County, reaching out to the county seniors who are enthusiastically welcoming me wherever I go. It's a big county. I'm one person. I'm running around and being as responsive as I can. And one of the things I'm learning as I'm out there is that it's not just bringing all these programs you see in the snapshot calendar to seniors. It's doing a lot of listening. There's politics involved with the local townships, as you can imagine, and securing space that's appropriate and safe for the use of seniors. It's the public relations with the various organizations out there, because each community has its own organizations. They want to be a part of what we're doing. And then as far as the programming goes, it's really listening to what the local senior community is wanting to have. Lori and I have talked about this quite a lot. We have ideas of what we think is going to work and what people are going to receive well, but none of that matters if that's not what they want. Interlochen has its own particular culture, as does Kingsley, and they're thriving little community centers already. The space that we use, we're guests in this space, welcome guests, but we, unlike
ours.
It's not our space. So unlike the Traverse City Senior Center, where everything's all set up, when I go in, I'm setting up for the day and I'm taking down for the day along with the help of volunteers. So that's kind of the overview of what's happening. Our programs, if you don't already know, involve not just recreation and education, but there's a lot of health stuff going on. If you look at your, I prepared a little snapshot calendar in your packet, and you'll see there's quite a few different programs that are going on as far as health goes, recreation, and health together. There's dancing and Zumba, and I've lost 10 pounds since I took this job, which is really a good thing. After Interlochen and Kingsley, Lori and I are having a town hall meeting in Fife Lake. That's the next stop, and I'm also scheduling meetings with different groups in the East Bay Acme area, again, looking for space that we don't have to rent, that's appropriate and safe for the use of our activities, which will often include a food program in cooperation with Northwest Community Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency.
Right.
So that's kind of where it's at.
As you
Happy to
can
answer
see
any
from the
questions.
snapshot in Interlochen, we basically have something going on in Interlochen every day of the week. Sharon is out there 2 days a week essentially, and then volunteers cover some of the other activities that are happening. Right now in Kingsley, we're there all day on Wednesdays, and then now we've added a program on Friday mornings, again relying on volunteers to assist with that. And in Fife Lake, we're expecting to be there on Tuesdays with the senior day. And so we can't really move on to a new community until we make sure we have enough resources, seniors, to maintain the things that have been set up in the other ones. So that's kind of where we're at right now, is getting those seniors comfortable with handling it on their own for certain periods of time so Sharon can move on to other communities and get things rolling as well. So I think things are going really well. Fife Lake is very excited and anxious to get us out there, so that's our first priority for 2012, and then looking at another community after we get that one rolling as well.
And if I could add, the seniors, which are people age 60 and up, so we're working with 4 generations of people really out there. But to highlight what this means to people, having a place where these programs are happening that they can be a part of and even lead. Today, we had a planned program in Kingsley where a sponsor was going to come in and give a presentation on long-term care. And we had plugged it into a place, a discussion group in Kingsley, where one of our members leads the discussion group on current issues. And this lady has been rather ill. Actually, I believe she's terminally ill. But as it happened today, the scheduled speaker had a family crisis and couldn't come in. And as luck would have it, this lady who's very, very ill was able to come in with her oxygen tank. And she had been missing so much leading that group that she led the group today with her oxygen tank pumping and a full audience, and they had a lively discussion. And it was a reminder to me about the importance of what we're doing. Life, we all have a limited amount of life. And what I'm learning from the seniors is a very valuable lesson. It's really important to live it all the way through. We all want to participate. We all want to still have meaning even after we're retired and after our children grow up and gone. We want to matter. And this lady at Kingsley today reminded me how important it is that we're giving people an opportunity to continue to matter in their community. So keep that
Very well said.
thought in mind.
And last week, we launched our lunch program in Interlochen and had over 100 people participate, and had a wonderful turnout, and it was astounding how excited people are to have us in the community, and I know we're going to have a lot more going on, and thanks to Larry for attending and checking that out. But there's a lot of interest and people waiting to have the right things going on, so we're excited to be there. Are there any questions or comments?
You know, I'd like to compliment Sharon on putting together that program for the first time, and her able assistant, Lori.
Absolutely.
But anyway, like Lori said, they had over 100 people there. It was a delicious meal, and afterwards, they had a speaker named Ross Richardson.
Everybody was expecting you, Ross.
And he spoke on the finding of the Westmoreland, which is a ship that sank in 1854. And they had a large audience to begin with, and I happened to be watching one of the volunteers, and she thought she had everybody seated, and the foyer would fill up again, and she's
Start all over
pretty
again.
proficient at reading lips, and she said, "Oh my goodness." They literally had the place packed, and people stayed there after the meal to listen to the speaker, Ross, who did a fine job. But I think the program you ran that day, if you run them all like that, it's perfect. And thank you.
Thank you. We're
Thank
glad to have you there.
And come see us, lunch tomorrow.
Well, first of all, you gave up a Butterburger. Good for you.
Let me tell you, when they said meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and all that, I was right there.
For $2.
And I want to mention, to the gentleman, I heard this on the radio, I see the sheriff sitting in the audience, and I heard him mention that last year he was voted the most handsome of the dancers.
He is our lead dancer.
The sheriff.
Oh, yeah, he's been recruiting, I don't know if he's recruiting or strong-arming people into dancing, too, but
And so
he's our champion.
now, everybody can go to the Valentine's dance and be in competition with our sheriff for that.
There is no
for that.
competition.
That was good, Lori.
He carries a gun.
Hard to compete with a man in uniform.
Anyway, that's it.
Would you explain the membership program? Because I thought residents of Grand Traverse County didn't have to pay a fee because of the millage.
That's right.
So would you explain how people and why they want to become a member?
Well, this week, in fact, is Membership Drive Week, and we've been quite busy this week. But if you're a Grand Traverse County resident and 60 or older, you do not have to pay a membership fee, but you need to join so that we know you're interested, so that we'll send you material so that you know what's going on, you get first-hand information. Many of our programs require membership. Most of them do. Some do not for various reasons. But the advantage to belonging is so that you have access to the many things that we have to offer. If you live in Grand Traverse County and you are under 60 years old, it's $10 a year to be a member. Since our millage is a senior millage, that's necessary to do that. If you live outside of Grand Traverse County, the membership fee is $50 a year to belong. And so there's different tiers for people to be involved. But last year we had 900 new members, a little over 900.
Any further questions for Lori and Sharon? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
This brings us to the Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office Department Vehicle Purchases. Nate, are you handling or is Tom?
Good evening. My name is Nate Altrover for the Sheriff's Office, and we've provided you a packet, agenda item reference, the purchase of an SUV for patrol function purposes. We've already gone out for bid for these vehicles. The bids were due earlier this month, and we received bids from 3 vendors. Those bid packets are, I believe, in the packet, the results of the bidding as well. One thing we learned from this round of bidding was back in July of 2011, we approached the RM&A committee and asked to purchase 7 Crown Vics ahead of schedule, in essence, for the 2012 year, because we had some concerns about what was going to be happening in the model year 2012 with the Interceptors and the Capris. The Ford company that has the bid for Macomb County did submit bid results for the Interceptors, and they were $5,000, in excess of $5,000 more than the Crown Vics. So you push that across 7 vehicles, the county saved $35,000, so congratulations on that decision. It worked out for the best. And we have a model that we're comfortable with, and we're able to exchange the equipment relatively free of charge. But the bid result did come in with, specific to the SUVs, with the Tahoe and the Expedition. The bids made by Bill Marsh, specific to the Durango and the Jeeps, I think those are a little small for our purposes. So we are requesting permission to purchase a Tahoe for patrol function. The Tahoe is $800 and some more than the Expedition, but what we've experienced with the Expedition is a significant amount of mechanical problems. Specifically, this vehicle we want to replace has had numerous repair problems. It's died in intersections. It's had to have been towed several times to D&W, and the mechanic who was under contract with us has said, please don't buy Expeditions. They have a lot better experience with the Tahoes through the state of Michigan, and so that's our recommendation, or request, actually.
Move for approval. Staff recommendation.
Motion by Inman, supported by Henschel. Further discussion? Ross?
Why wasn't this included in your budget?
It was, actually. Initially we asked for 9 vehicles through the budget requesting process, and during the July 13th meeting, the RM&A meeting, we said we'd be coming back for this vehicle to this board because we knew this vehicle was going to be needing to be replaced, but because the bid in July was specific for Crown Vics, we did not want to infuse those issues, and that was taken out of the budget at that time.
Well, I do remember that you talked about a 4x4. My memory was not that you needed to specifically replace a vehicle as much as you needed to figure out what would work as a patrol vehicle going forward, because the Crown Vics wouldn't be available anymore. And so you were sort of like, maybe in a way testing the water. But I don't remember it specifically being part of the budget. The cost of this vehicle.
We requested 9 vehicles at the cost of $28,000 in our budget. That was our initial request. We
Okay.
reduced that request at that July meeting to 7 Crown Vics. During that meeting, we discussed that the Sheriff's Office would be coming forward this year asking for an expedition. That was not budgeted after July 13, you're absolutely correct.
Okay. Do you have money in your budget somewhere where you can cover this?
We do not.
Is it the differential that we're talking about, or the full amount?
Full amount.
Full amount.
The request is for $29,000 something.
Okay, so it doesn't replace the $28,000 one of the vehicles? and
No, it does
switching
not.
over?
No,
It
this
does not?
board granted 7 vehicles at the cost of $20,534 last year.
Larry?
I believe I received an email today that said there was an error in the sheet, the bid prices in the sheet in our packet, that we would have one on our table tonight, and I don't see that, and I'm wondering where the error was.
The error was a transposition of the dollar amount for the Ford Interceptor versus the Ford Expedition. The Ford Interceptor was $25,558, and the Ford Expedition was $28,415. In the agenda item itself, we quoted a price of $25,558 rather than $28,415.
Okay, so the true difference is $838 then?
That is correct.
Okay.
The difference was correct, just the stated amount was incorrect.
Okay, thank you.
Dean, have we been able to identify the funding for this process, for this purchase?
Yes, I would recommend that we make this purchase if the board is in agreement with the sheriff's request from our CIP fund. We have a general contingency budgeted of $122,500. In addition, we have not budgeted any fund balance in that fund because we're carrying some funds forward into 2013 to make the final road bond payment. Another option would be the general fund contingency, which is $100,000, but my preference would be that we use our general contingency and the CIP fund for the purchase.
What is the balance in this capital improvement fund?
The fund balance is approximately $830,000.
Of which we have something designated for that?
There is all but $100,000 of that committed currently.
All right.
Okay, further question? Okay, so I guess I would ask the maker of the motion to amend the motion to show that that money would be funded from, or that purchase would be made from the CIP fund.
I would do that.
And the support agrees?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to authorize the Sheriff's Department to purchase this Chevy Tahoe vehicle for a cost of $29,253 with funding to come from the county CIP fund. We all in agreement?
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Aye.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Henschel?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Richardson?
No.
Thomas?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. Motion carries. This brings us to prisoner reimbursement presentation. Thank you, Nate.
Good evening, Todd Ritter with the Sheriff's Office.
Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County Sheriff. We're here this evening, we were here about 3 or 4 months ago and indicated that we were looking into a program to recoup some of the money that's owed to us from prisoner reimbursements, bills that they incur that they have not paid us. We just kind of laid out the basic plan at that time. Sergeant Ritter has been working since that time to finalize the presentation, which he has for you tonight. And what it involves 3 or 4 different steps. He's got some figures that show the outstanding balances we currently have. He's got, you wanted at the last meeting, the cost of someone to, what it would cost to hire someone to run this collections program. And he's here to answer any other questions you might have. He went to 3 counties that are currently doing this a couple of weeks ago and sat down with them and found out exactly how they do it, what their methods are, and he would be able to, I'm not sure which 3 counties they were, but he'd be able to answer any questions that you might have. So I'll let Sergeant Ritter go through his presentation, and you're free to ask him any questions when you're done, when he's done.
Real quick, one of the questions you had last time we met, see if this is going to work here, was how do we do this? In order for us to collect fees that are different from what the set fees that you guys as the commission have authorized, we have to have a resolution. The prosecuting attorney's office, Bob Cooney, drafted a resolution that would allow the sheriff's office to essentially make deals with inmates to collect fees. And that's something you would have to pass for us to even continue with this. You have a copy of that resolution to look at, but this is the first step in us really proceeding to move on. You also asked what the cost for this position was. HR worked that out, and they came up with a figure of $51,863 as a wage and benefit package for a collections specialist. Looking at the other counties and the way they're doing it, kind of looked at how their scales were working and where they had success and where they had failure, and had the benefit of not having to do that. They've all kind of are very close in this range that we're proposing. And basically looking at, for the people that are in-house, cutting deals at a percentage rate for full payment prior to the release. And we'd be looking at a range from $1 to $1,000, making a deal of 75% of their full payment, and we'd waive the other 25. On $1,001 to $2,500, a 60% full payment prior to release, and on $2,501 to $5,000 or up would be a 45% full payment prior to release. Again, that's just a small part when you're talking about dealing with the prisoners in-house. We're also going to be offering deals similar to this to people that have been released to try to take care of that debt as well. With the resolution, it also allows us, one of the commissioners had asked earlier if we're working with the district courts and if we're looking at doing civil judgments. When I went to Kent County is the only county that the sheriff's department and courts are working it all together on their collections, and there's a lot of issues with it because the sheriff's department has different authority to collect money than the court does. We can civilly go after them where the courts can't. The courts can use their criminal case and make it sanctions as part of their criminal case, but they can't also turn around and sue them civilly where the sheriff's department can. So if we did go the civil route, one of the nice things that we have with our jail accounting software is anyone that we do get a judgment against, whether it be for a deal we've made with them or a full amount. Once you've given us the authority to make this, we can get those judgments, we can put it as a debt in our accounting software, and then every time the inmate comes back, money that are deposited into their inmate account, which some of these accounts are significant deposits in every year, a portion of that judgment is taken every time until that judgment's satisfied. So we can start collecting on debts of these people coming back that right now we're not collecting on. Again, I included some of the amounts that we looked at over the past few years that we've turned over to core recovery and what kind of money was being brought in on those accounts just through core recovery. Those numbers you've seen. Included as of September 20th when we first presented this, where we were standing as far as in-house collections on our general housing and work release fees. At that time, we were at about 7% on our general housing fees and about 58% on our work release fees. Again, our hope is to increase that. At a minimum, in the first year, you're not going to see huge increases as this person tries to figure out what they're doing and get this program rolling, but we're hoping to at least try to get that to a 10% is our goal. Right now, currently outstanding, and this is a slide I'm sorry you were missing, I gave you a handout for. The Sheriff's Department is holding $1,069,379 and some change billings that we are still currently trying to collect that we have not turned over to core recovery. And then the accounts that core recovery still considers collectible, just since 2009, they're holding $1,008,396 and some change, so a little over $2 million in collectible accounts that right now we think we can get better activity on. And again, here's the projected where we hope to be seeing a 10% increase to at least get to a 20% margin of collection compared to the 7% we're at now. Yes.
Yeah, Sergeant Ritter, so does CORE have any explanation of why they do so poorly at this, or?
Well, that's they do about what the industry standard is for collection agencies. They are very limited in what they can and can't do as far as tracking people down and actually trying to collect this debt. That's where the Sheriff's Department is in a unique situation. We, with a resolution like the one we're proposing you pass, have a great authority to go out and get these funds that many other people don't have.
Okay, and then, so obviously, once this happens, CORE will be out of the business completely?
Well, you still have a percent, in my mind at this point, no. They have a 7% on old accounts that they're still collecting on. And there are only so many years that we can legally go back. People are still paying on accounts with CORE that we legally can't go back on and get. So I wouldn't recommend that we lose CORE. However, we look at the accounts that we see are truly collectible, and we aggressively collect on those accounts and keep CORE out of the loop on those accounts.
Okay, so you're just not going to give CORE any new accounts?
Well, not necessarily. If we determine account is not a high probability of collection for us, that is an account I would say we would still turn over to CORE and let them work on it until the statute of limitation runs out on it instead of just ignoring it, to where we'll pursue the more likely accounts to collect on.
Okay, but you think you can cover the cost of this $51,000 employee by
I truly believe that. I can't say in the first year. The first year, you know, you're going to have expense costs starting up, and the person's going to be learning the process. Will we truly see that 10% in the first year? I can't say. By the time I see the second year rolling and this person has developed the system and is working the system, I could see this easily funding and costing additional funds from what it's making.
Jason?
Todd?
You have about 34% collection rate after.
The person who would be handling this, would they be expected to do some of the heavy skip tracing, or would that be something that Core would still be doing, as far as for people who move out of the area?
Yeah, and that's where we're talking the collectibles. You know, we're going to be looking at who can we easily contact and verify either have assets or means. The people that, we're not going to have this person spinning their wheels looking for someone that nobody's seen in 2 years in our state. Now, those are the kind of accounts we'll turn over to Core. If Core gets a lead on them, because we'll stay in contact with Core, and if it's a person that can pay, Core is willing to give us any account back we want to take back. So, you know, we're going to work with Core.
And I understand the industry enough. I've worked in the industry. They work with other people across the country, and there are associations that they work with and contract with for the work as well.
And that's why I'd say we shouldn't take them out of the loop.
Right, exactly. Thank you.
Herb?
I have a concern about people that are in poverty, especially those that are having to pay child support. And if you go after them and you pick up the money and they decide not to pay their child support, you got them back in your jail. You know, that's just a spiral just waiting for something to go down right down the black hole. And I'm concerned about doing this kind of collections. You know, I understand the value of it. I understand that they need to pay it. But when you start looking at 2 or 3 different organizations within our county that are all trying to get dollars from the same person, and they're making $8 an hour, they can't hardly put food on their table. I don't know what our poverty rate is, got to be pretty close to 20%, and I don't know what the poverty rate is in the jail cell. But I think that that's a huge issue for me, to be very concerned about trying to go after these people when you take and say, we're going to get the money. Now they take it away from the child support. Now the children, they suffer. Now you go out and you arrest them, you put them back. It's a spiral. I have a problem with it.
Well, I agree, and that's why I think we're in a more unique situation than the collection agency. We are going to be looking at things that a collection agency doesn't have access to. We're going to know what their court fines are. We're going to know what their child support is. We're going to be able to look at those other payments and obligations that they have, and every case will be looked at on a case-by-case basis. You know, and like I said, we're looking at people that are collectible. If somebody doesn't have enough to support what they owe now, those aren't the people we're going to waste our time trying to collect from. You know, it's the people that have the means that right now are just choosing not to pay the county their debt. Those are the people that we're really interested in trying to get that money from at this point.
Todd, of the 7% that Core collects, what percentage of what they collect do they keep? What is our actual result?
In 2010, they collected $14,900 on $575,000 we turned over, and we received $10,000 of that. So they kept $4,400.
40%.
Yep.
Jason?
Here's a question. While it makes sense and it's practical for us to look at the ability to pay based on their other current issues, is it legal?
It is, and I'm not saying we're not going to have every expense. What I'm saying is the governmental interest expenses they have, such as the courts, such as child support, those we have access to. We have access because they're in the system with us.
Right. My concern is the pursuit. I mean, are we then treating some people differently than others based upon what might be considered arbitrary? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I don't think it's arbitrary to look at what somebody's obligations to the courts and child support are and compared to their income. I think that's factual based. If you have a guy that makes $100,000 and only has $20,000 in obligations, he has money that he can afford to pay us. I mean, that's factual, not arbitrary. If a guy only makes $20,000,
we're not going to get anything.
$20,000 in obligations, we're not going to spin our wheels going after him.
Well, I guess the one concern that I have, and, you know, I'm sure Dean probably has better handle on how effective it is. We have collection persons in each of the courts. You know, it just seems foolish to me that we have all of these different collections people that are trying to collect the same money from the same people. Because, you know, it's back to the thing that,
85% of our money is spent on taking care of 10% of our community population. You know, and they're either in the jail, they're in the courts, or they're, you know, out on the street on one of our other programs. But the fact is, we're talking about 8 to 10% of our population is what we're dealing with here. And we already have 3 collection departments trying to get money from these folks. And now we're talking about creating another one. You know, and I understand that the rules are a little different. I guess I will say that the criteria that the sheriff can use, or the pressure that the sheriff can use, is a little bigger hammer than the court has, you know, in some ways. But the fact is, you know, we're still dealing with the same people. If you get your money, the court's not going to get theirs. You know, and, you know, I deal with employees all the time that have guaranteements from one purpose or another, and child support. You know, thank God the state finally went to a thing where I only have to send 1 check a week to one place instead of I had a guy a few years ago that I sent 3 different checks to 3 different counties for child support for 1 employee, you know. But now it's, at least it's 1. But the fact is we are still all trying to get money from these same people. And I just, I understand what Herb's saying in the fact that if you get your money, somebody else isn't going to get theirs, whether it be the district court, the probate court, the friend of the court. Somebody's not going to get it because those people don't generally have excess money.
I agree to an extent. There are several people that come through the jail that can't afford to pay the bills they have. However, seeing firsthand who comes through our jail, there are a number of people that can afford to pay these bills that are choosing not to do so. Now, we're not going to try to take the dollar off the district court plate. We're going to be looking at the people that have the dollar to pay us, are paying the court because the court has put something over their head, and still choosing to not pay us because we're not doing anything about it. And that's who we're looking at.
I think Todd makes a good point there, and Dennis in the budget memo, and I don't know all of the details, my memory's not what it used to be, but we did outline the issues with combining the collections efforts. In one particular court, you really can't implement procedures that would cross all courts because that has to be approved at the state level. And each collections function has, you know, different purposes and different things that they can do. In this case, I believe that Todd and the sheriff would have to, and the jail administrator would have to be mindful of the issues that have been raised, and we're certainly not going to collect funds that are due for housing and inmate costs when we know that that same individual has a child support payment. You know, that's going to have to be built into this. My primary concern with this, when you look at the resolution, is what extent of this work will be done by corrections and by this person if we choose to go this route versus how much would have to be, or at what point in time does it have to be handed over to the prosecuting attorney? Because there is language in here regarding the fact that the attorney for the county may file a civil action. So,
and essentially what that means is what our person would do is when it gets to a point where we decide we're going to go for a judgment against this person. We take that over, the prosecutor signs that they're authorizing the judgment, the collection specialist then goes and files it with the court, and then they follow through with it in the court.
do you have any idea how many counties might be doing programs such as this?
To this extent, there are about 4 I know of, and I visited 3 of the 4.
And they've all, I think, demonstrated based on your visits and discussions that they've improved their collections.
Correct.
And their revenues. Would one person, one FTE be able to do what you would envision this would be able to do? And obviously, over time, if it generates more revenue.
And that's it. I think one person is a start, and we see what kind of revenue beyond the cost of this position it covers. If they determine, you know, we could collect so much more had I had more time, then we look at, you know, is it covering enough for another FTE, and do we staff it with another position to bring in that extra revenue if it's there?
I know that just I'm sure you are all aware of this, but we did, over the last 2 budget years, we've, charged and tasked the departments and the courts to look at ways that they could improve revenues. And this cost center in our general fund is one of those places where the revenues have tapered off. Obviously a function of the economic times that we're going through, but I do agree with Todd that there are revenues here that we can go after, but it will require that dedicated person to do that. And obviously the initial year, it's going to be a lot of trial and error, and you may not generate the dollars to cover the position. I'm more hopeful that as time would go on, that we would be able to fully fund that position. And obviously the budget impact here would be a concern, and I think what we'd have to do there is just obviously budget for the position, if that's what the board would choose to do. And I am confident that overall, in our sheriff's office budget, we never spend 100% of the personnel funds that are budgeted, and if we did not realize the revenue in the first year, there would be sufficient budget dollars to make up that difference. So if you would decide to pursue this further, I think that's the way that you could cover it in terms of the budget.
Larry? Dean, if you could remind me, it seems as though when we started this process, I think in circuit court, could be wrong, could be district court, one of the courts, was it Esther?
Esther would have probably been one of the first truly designated collections, and I believe that was in the probate court, or family court.
And my recollection was that was a very successful program, and that she generated more than what the position had costed out to us, and every year it kept building on more success, and then I just kind of lost track as to, after a while, how we were doing in that area.
To be honest, I don't know, and I certainly don't want to say that, they, all of the collections efforts fully cover their cost. I mean, you have to remember, in the case of the courts, there are times that we don't get the biggest take on what we collect, because a lot of those dollars do go back to the state as well. So, I mean, when you look at total collections in the court function, we are definitely funding the full cost of the position, but we don't get to retain all the dollars that we collect.
Larry?
I'm not really in favor of this at all. And I look over the data that you gave us, and for example, they've collected 7% in the general housing, but 58% in the work release. Well, after being in business 38 years, I found there's a profound reason that people don't pay their bills. They don't have the money. It's not a matter of they don't want to pay it. And I can tell you a short story like Sonny was talking about employees. Had a young man got arrested. First of all, he was going through a divorce, so I'm sending in child support for him, which took a good hunk of his paycheck. Then he got arrested for drunk driving because he's despondent. So now he's got the court after him, and it just became a round robin. And so at 39 years old, the young man, after a year, finally committed suicide. To me, that's not a viable solution to the problem. Nobody collected anything after that. The 4 children were without a father. And he was a very hard-working individual. Another question I've got is, of the people in the jail, I would presume probably the ones in the work release program don't have court-appointed attorneys. I would think the ones probably in the general population, a lot of them would have court-appointed attorneys. So there's another bill that they have to pay. And the biggest problem I have with the whole shadoodle is the salary of $51,000, I think it was.
That would be including benefits. It's not just salary.
But what I would probably, that's almost $52,000. So say he collects $60,000. That's almost like the personal property tax fiasco we went through. We said we didn't want to even look at anybody that didn't have $50,000 worth because the money it cost us to collect it wasn't worth it. It was costing us money. Same situation here. We're paying somebody $52,000 and we're going to gain $8,000 and it's on their back. Just like Sonny said and Herb, I'm just not in favor of it. If the board were inclined to do it, I might be in favor, and I would probably vote to the affirmative if it was on a commission basis. Make this individual, because a lot of the people you're dealing with in there, particularly in the general population, are the $7.50 an hour wage earners. And if they're paying child support, they can't even put food on their table. I mean, they don't have any money for anything. Gasoline's only $3.50 a gallon, you know, right now. But I think we need to rethink this. And like I said earlier, the only reason that I would see that they don't pay is because they don't have the funds. And those same persons that CORE can't go after, you know, they don't have any assets. Like I said, after 38 years in business, I've learned a hard lesson. Used to run right to the court, get the thing, file the execution order. If they haven't got anything, you can't get anything. So the moral to the story is, don't extend the credit. You know, perhaps if the fees were more realistic to where it's not an insurmountable mountain to the poor individual making $8 an hour, you know, there's a lot of good people that end up in jail for whatever reason. They may attempt to pay, but once that mountain gets so big, it's just, forget it.
Larry? Just want to feedback on some memory on the last presentation I think the both of you made on the previous. Two questions. One is, are you currently working with the inmates that are in your jail and trying to make arrangements for the cost of incarceration right now and maybe cutting a deal if they got cash up front, like the sheriff said, I'll give you a 50% discount or, you know, whatever, what kind of payment arrangements can we make before, you know, before your release date or whatever, and sit down and actually explain the whole process of the cost of that incarceration and, you know, our legal ability to collect. But I'm just wondering if the older they get, the more aging the billing, the tougher it's going to be to collect, and that's true in the banking business as well. And we ended up sending everything over to Court Recovery on all that old stuff. And the new stuff, we ended up, you know, that was like pretty fresh, you know, we handled that internally. And we would sit down with, it would be our customers, but it would be not your customer, it's your prisoner. And would you have, if, for an example, if we had a situation where the old stuff stayed with CORE and the new inmates that you have in your jail now, prior to release, would you have the staffing capability of visiting with them and trying to work out an arrangement, if possible, and making an assessment of their ability to pay and making payment arrangements or cutting what they might call a, you know, if you pay this amount, we'll forgive the differential or whatever agreement, and not add to staff to do that process? That's the question I have.
That's kind of two-part. One, right now, no, we don't have the authority to do it. The commissioners set what the daily housing fees rate are, and we cannot change that. You have all set, or the board before you have set, this is what you will charge per day. We don't have the authority to cut them a deal on that. That's what this resolution is for.
All right. But if we did?
And if we did at this point, no, we do not have the staffing. That's why we're asking for a person that has the time to sit down and deal with these people on a case-by-case basis. And that's what allows us to get into what the concerns I've heard are. This isn't a carte blanche, this is what we're doing to everybody. This person, if we have a dedicated person, every inmate that comes to our facility, we have a financial statement on. They tell us what their assets are, how much they've got in the bank, what their bills are, what their monthly obligations are. This person has a chance to sit down and look at, this person has income that can afford to deal with us. Those are the people we're looking at dealing with. And if we sit down with them and say, okay, here, if you are willing to pay, and you are willing to pay a significant portion by X amount of time, we're willing to sit down and make out a reasonable monthly payment with you in conjunction with what your other bills are, so this isn't overwhelming to you with a massive bill we're sending you every month. And that's where we're going to realize this revenue. With smaller payments monthly from a lot of people that we're not getting now, as well as lump payments from some people that when you show them a decent amount that they're going to cut 50% of their bill and they have that income, they're going to say, yeah, if you're going to save me $2,000, I'll pay it now. There are those people that come through our jail. Not everyone that comes through our jail is below the poverty level. We have people that come through our jail with significant means. And I've seen people come through our jail with significant means that are still thumbing their nose at our bill.
Todd, have we looked at anything other than core recovery for collection agencies?
We have looked at what other agencies are out there, but core is really collecting what the agency standard is.
Right.
Not many agencies are realizing more than a 7%, 8% recovery rate.
I know daily I get phone calls from collection agencies wanting to collect my delinquent bills. They just, and I tell them regularly, if you can collect it, I'm already getting it.
Yep.
Well, a couple things. Number one, the people that come in, they're right there, and we don't have to try to track them down. I mean, they're there to contact. There's, as you can see, a significant amount of money that's proven successful in other counties. They've been able to collect on their debts. We just think that this might be an idea we can try. We can't guarantee we're going to cover our costs. It's proven that in other counties it's worked. We're not way out of the ball game, and it's something that we thought that was a good enough idea to pursue and bring to the board to try and collect. You know, the rates are set. The people come to the jail. We can sit down, talk to them, negotiate. Some people, as Sergeant Ritter said, they may have the means, they may not. I understand Commissioner Lemcool's concern. It's kind of a revolving door, you know, there's a significant amount of money there. We don't know if we're going to make $52,000 annually or $250,000. And we've talked about if you make $60,000 and it costs $52,000, is all that effort worth it? No, we don't think so. But if it was twice that, where is that line that you cross and say, yes, it's worth it, or no, it's not? So it's an idea we had to collect what's owed to the county, and the ways that we would go about that have been outlined by Sergeant Ritter. Other counties, again, have done this. They've been successful, and that's where we're at.
Rob?
Couple questions. First of all, I want to commend you for looking at innovative ways to run your department more efficiently. We appreciate that. First question I had is, how did you arrive at the salary level? What are the skills that are required of this person, or perhaps experience, that you arrived at the $51,000 and change salary?
The salary itself was a salary and benefit package that was actually set up by HR, and I think the salary is actually somewhere around $34,000, somewhere in there, and it's with the benefit package, it's
pretty good benefits.
Yeah.
It starts at $15.04 an hour.
It's how much an hour?
Starts at $15.04 an hour. It is the same, we use the collection specialist job description that's currently in the courts as a ease of comparison for this
Is
purpose.
there education requirements for that applicant?
I believe it's a high school diploma.
High school diploma?
I don't quote me on that. I know for sure it requires a high school diploma. I'm not sure if it requires anything additional.
Is there any experience required?
Yeah.
How much experience?
I didn't bring it with me, Rob, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. But some experience?
Absolutely.
At least a couple
Yep,
years?
for an F level, it's going to have experience necessary for it. The levels start at A and go up from there, so it will have that experience
Okay.
necessary.
My second question was, why aren't, okay, you said there's 4 other counties in Michigan doing it. Why aren't the rest of them?
I know of 4 others that are developing similar programs right now. And I guess that's 5, because I just talked to one today that said, we'll call to see how far we were with ours, because they're fresh on our heels. Everyone stepped back. Macomb County started this, and everyone stepped back to watch Macomb County, how things worked. And Macomb County is a very poor county when it comes to the populace that's going through their facility. However, they've still realized almost at one point 34% collection rates on their fees. But everyone kind of let them go through the stumbling blocks, see where things were going to fall and see where things leveled out, to see if it was worth things in the long run. As they started showing in the long run it was worth it, now other counties are getting on board.
Larry?
I would also have a problem with the county negotiating with an individual that had the means to pay and allowing him to skate for 50% or whatever. The amount's immaterial, because some people are dealt a hand in life where they don't have the funds, they never will have the funds, and to pursue them at a full scale, you know, if you want to do 50% reductions, I'm in favor of everybody gets it. But being selective, no. And back to the salary, have you considered, say, minimum wage, $7.50 an hour, and commission? You know, any salesman out there or go-getter works on a commission, and the right person, I'm sure, would make more than the $51,000.
Well, we've modeled this after what other counties have done, okay? The other counties have followed the same program, and there wasn't any that operated, paid somebody, and then a minimum wage, and then on a commission, okay? So if we wanted to look at that, we'd have to sit down and figure out how we want to do that. I think the collection in there, obviously, a big part of this is some negotiating with the person who owes the money, because each situation is going to be a little bit different. And so with the percentages here, with just kind of a general proposal that says, here's what we'd like to do, and see how that worked out. You may have somebody who owes a lot of money that can't pay. You may have somebody who owes a little bit but has the means to pay. We're just trying to increase the revenue that we're not getting basically right now.
How long would we go at $52,000 a year and the numbers don't come out right? You know, Todd said it'd take a year probably just to get on its feet and not really be fully productive. But is it 2 years, 3 years? And then if it doesn't work out, do we absorb that person into the workforce? You know, that's what I'm afraid of.
That would be something for Jen to answer, but if we eliminated the position, I don't think that person would be absorbed into the workforce.
But see, once it's started, 2.5 years from now, you're going to have different commissioners sitting here. Who's going to go over and look in the sheriff's book and say, Sergeant Ritter, you know, how much has that man collected this year, or that woman?
Well, I can tell you that if we're losing money on it, we'll stop that procedure. I mean, if you're spending $52,000, you're collecting 24, that means you're losing $28,000 every year. That's not a good plan.
No.
That's not a good plan.
As long as Tom Bensley's the sheriff, I'd believe that, because you do watch the dollars, but there'll come a day when you're not the sheriff.
Well, I think the board, at some point, would be able to cease that process, you know, or, yes, honestly, it's a little unsure, you know, what are we going to do? Other counties have been successful. They've got that record, okay? So we'd like to try that. And if it loses money, yeah, we're going to get out of it. And you're going to tell us, get out of it. That's very simple. We're going in it with the idea that we're going to make money, not lose money.
Well, in principle, I think it's a good idea. But I feel a lot like Herb does, that the ones that would be punished the most are the ones that can't afford it. I'm having trouble with it.
Jason?
Couple of things is, I had the same thought that Commissioner Lemkold brought up, you know, before. I mean, when we talked about this before, I think I brought up the same point, is that I was afraid that it's, you know, it's the families that wind up getting punished. And the explanation at the time, if I recall, is, yes, you're looking at the ability to pay. You're looking at the ability, if they've got 3 snowmobiles, you know, we're going to know if they've got snowmobiles in the yard and an extra car and resources at hand that they can convert into payments. So I'm satisfied. I'm willing to vote for this. However, I do, one of the things that government doesn't do very often is create a program and then let it die. And I think what we need to do is, if we go forward and this passes, we need to have an automatic sunset. At that time, it gets brought back up before us. If it's working, it's worth going forward some more. If not, then we let it pass into the night. And I think that's the way. So I mean, if we were to make this resolution, I think we should put a 2-year sunset on it. I think that gives enough time to get it up to speed and see where we're going.
We wouldn't have any objection to that.
Can we pass the resolution and not pass the person, the position? I mean, there's two separate motions here, right?
No.
Or is it all one?
Well, there is. Technically, I think you have to have the resolution, which gives the sheriff the authority by which to reduce the fees that are set.
Yeah.
That's the first item.
Yeah.
And then the
That's what I'm
second
thinking.
item would be the creation of the position. And there would be 2 separate issues. And then once you put it in the staffing plan, then you'd have to agree to hire that person even after it was in the
With
staff.
Commissioner Inman's comments there about, do we have the staff available and something like that? And at this point, the answer is no. I don't know, and maybe you're looking at some kind of a hybrid plan where the resolution passes, and then, so we have that authority, but we don't hire the person. Maybe we find some time with some person to selectively kind of look at some of these and see how that goes. I don't know if that's where you're going with that.
That's where I was going, yeah.
Okay, I don't know. If we have the resolution, yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But implementing this, maybe it needs another look at a little different direction. And we understand the concerns about people who can't pay. We're not trying to penalize those people. Sergeant Ritter said there are people who thumb their nose at us, and the answer, the question there is, do they thumb their nose $52,000 or more worth, okay? And those would obviously be the people we're looking at.
Well, to speak real quick to Commissioner Thomas there, really with the person that does not have the ability to pay, nothing will change. We bill those people now. What we're proposing is we offer them less of a bill and try to give them a reasonable managed payment that they can afford to pay if they want to pay it. Instead of sending them a huge bill that we're saying pay now, or we're turning you over to a collection agency. So even the people that don't have the ability to just pay this bill, we're trying to reduce that fee to them anyway and sit down and look at their finances one-on-one and say, let us take a reasonable approach with this and look at what you can afford. If you can afford something, make this reasonable so you can do it.
Who's doing the billing now?
Right now, we send out a total billing for what you owe us.
Monthly?
Monthly.
So if we pass the resolution, theoretically, the billing's going to continue, only with the age of computerization, I would hope that you'd be able to put something perhaps on that statement that would say, you know, whatever you guys came up with, and see how it worked rather than hiring a person right off the get-go.
I think we have to think about that. I
How would
understand
you
what
assess
you're
their
saying.
ability to pay?
Well,
Yeah.
Dean was going to say something, and I'm curious as to what it was.
I lost my train of
Oh,
thought.
Whoever we hire.
gonna be at the Civic Center.
65275.
Well, I'll tell you what, in the banking business, it's pretty much standard practice. If we have a deficiency on a defaulted note, we'll offer the customer a significant discount, and everyone has an aunt, uncle, mother, father, grandparent, grandfather that they could go to see if they could help them out, you know, part of the family thing. And you'd be surprised how innovative people can be with their family members to get them out of a jam. And, you know, one thing I would suggest is the possibility of us passing a resolution giving the sheriff the ability to discount the amount owed, and they would be given a period of time of whatever that period reasonable time is. If it's 90 days, if it's 6 months or whatever, they would accept a discounted amount. It would be equal across the board, as Commissioner Fleece would say. And if they could not do that, then or they could accomplish that by making minimum payments during that period of time in terms of that lower discount amount, then I would just send it over to Core Recovery and just let them have it. You know, I would tell Core Recovery, listen, if we have $1 million out there in outstandings and you can negotiate 50% as a deal, and you get your 40%, I'd go with Core Recovery too. Personally, that's what I would do. Ross?
You can't. They can't.
I had a question about, you have a thing in here that as of September 20th, this will be last year, you had billed $378,000 in general housing fees and $64,000 in work release fees. Do you know how many individuals that represents, roughly?
I don't, Commissioner. I'd have to check those numbers.
Some of them was the same person multiple times.
You mean
Well-
total, how many people do we have?
Well, I mean, yeah,
with
we're
open
looking
accounts?
we're looking at $440,000. So how many different accounts is that $440,000 represent? Are we talking 50 or 200 or?
Hundreds.
Oh, yeah, you're talking thousands
Just this year, I mean, just in 1 year?
per year, yes.
Or just in a period of, in this case, 9 months?
Yes, you average about 5,000 bookings a year, and every one of those bookings has an account. Every one of them that ends up with a sentence to stay in jail ends up with a bill from us.
Larry?
I'd like to make a motion that we pass the prisoner reimbursement resolution presented to us tonight. I think the date or the year should be corrected on it, to 2012.
And that's
As is?
as is?
Yes, the resolution
Where's that at now?
where it allows the sheriff to negotiate, or his representatives, to negotiate settlements that are conducive to the collection of the
Oh, okay.
funds.
Okay, all right, I got you.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have support?
I'll support it.
Motion by Fleece, supported by Richardson. Further discussion?
We have to
Jason,
change the
you-
date on that.
Right. Jason, you had a question?
Yeah, no, I mean, and as a follow-up beyond this, and I'm going to support this, as a follow-up beyond this, if I'm understanding the situation correctly, then the next motion would be whether or not we...
How we do it.
How we do it. And I'd like to say that I think it's, you know, I don't like spending the extra money, but if we want to have somebody actually negotiating and working with the, you know, and trying to figure out who can pay and who can't, we're going to need that person. And that's the whole point, and as much a counselor as anything, too. So, and Commissioner Richardson kind of brought up the point. How many people are we talking about? And if we've got people who are overworked or at, at their abilities already, assessing what's going to be available for us to collect, that person is going to be necessary for that part of the process. So I'm going to support this motion.
Bob?
Clarification, I believe this does include the hiring of a full-time employee?
This one does
Not the
not.
resolution.
No, the resolution simply gives the sheriff or his designee the opportunity to negotiate a settlement for fees.
That's not what I'm reading.
Well, the language in it
The
says...
county has approved the hiring of a full-time employee.
Yeah.
They already have full-time employees, you know.
For this purpose.
I
Have
think
we
need to clarify.
previously, did we previously approve the hiring of an employee?
No.
When they made a
No.
presentation?
No, they hasn't.
Larry, this,
So actually, this motion does have.
Maybe
Yeah.
perhaps what I would suggest
Yeah.
is
It
that
does.
we
That's whereas.
strike the fifth whereas, where it says the county has approved the hiring of full-time
Yeah, that's what you need to
employee,
do.
and then handle that as a second motion?
Yeah, that's what you need to do.
Exactly.
Good catch.
yeah, I was,
Rob?
Thank you for that clarification.
yes.
That was a concern.
Me too.
I like the resolution better now, but without a sunset, I will not support it.
Could we amend that?
Well, the sunset on the negotiations, at this point, like the sheriff stated earlier, you know, 2 years down the road, if we don't authorize hiring an additional $52,000 person, certainly 2 years down the road, when he's tried all his negotiation powers and it isn't working, he's not gonna do it. So the sunset, I think, that Jason came up with would have to do if we hired the $52,000 person, so.
So what you're suggesting is basically giving the sheriff's department the ability to negotiate how much it is to stay there.
Exactly, plus, like one of the other commissioners said, and I forgot who it was, the sheriff would have the authority to even negotiate with the ones he's turning over to Corps. He could say, you can discount them 25%, you know, whatever they come up with, they're the ones working with it. And I have to disagree with Jason when it comes to hiring that person off the get-go, because in the age of computerization, if I was going to run that program, and I was sending out monthly bills, number one, I'd probably come up with a different colored paper. So when the person gets the bill, they'd say, geez, what's different here? And then put something attractive in there to make them read that son of a gun, so they know that the county's offering a deal.
Jason?
I think that it may seem like a minor point, but I think the sunset needs to be applied to this, because this is what drives the position if we create the position. And everything that happens is going to come down from this. So I would prefer, and I'm not going to make the motion unless we get some kind of consensus, but I mean, I'd prefer to see this motion changed to add the sunset so that it expires in 2 years or 3 years or whatever we decide, simply because that would be the absolute, whether or not that position would be there. Even if we said the position, you know, we're going to hire somebody for 2 years, then what?
Chris?
I've got a, I mean, you're proposing that if somebody pays before they leave, for instance, that they get a discount. What's to say that all the people who, the type of individual that stays in the jail for whatever reason, what's to say that if we do this, it's not going to lower your revenues? I mean, if everybody knows that before they leave, if they pay, I mean, the people that would pay anyway would get a discount.
We're not gonna do a 90% reduction, so we're gonna collect more money than we're collecting right now. So we're only collecting 10% now.
The counties, it is is working in now.
I mean, anytime I get
Chris.
anytime I can get a cash discount,
Right. When word gets out,
you know, anytime I can get a cash discount, I'll take it.
Larry,
And-
we're collecting so little right now, it can only
Right.
get better.
You know, I personally think there's a way to do this without hiring someone. I think that, I guess, not knowing and working with the sheriff's office, you have somebody that comes in and does an assessment when you get into the jail, okay? And when you leave the jail, there's someone handling a certain procedure or process when you exit the jail. You get your box of personal items. You get whatever, you get when you leave the jail. That particular person can have a form right sitting there as a part of the process of releasing the individual from jail that says, your amount owed for your stay is X. You have up to this date to contact our office at this phone number or at this location, and we would work out an arrangement with you for a lower cost within a certain time period. Otherwise, it'll be turned over to a court recovery. And hand it to the person and said, what do you think? You think you can work on something like this? Yes or no? Okay, we'll see you, we'll see you back here. And, maybe you can work it out just that way. You might need anybody on the phone full-time just dialing these people. Get them right up front before they leave, and they'll say, hey, sounds good to me, I'll give you a call back. And they know within 90 days, if they don't call back, they're going to get a call from Court of Recovery. And maybe Court of Recovery gives them, not as good as discount, but maybe we'll get more than the 14,000.
well, I think, I get the sense that you'd like us to try to figure out some way to collect some money, but not with a full-time employee. And my suggestion might be, maybe we should go back and just, how could we do that, okay? Just a little chit-chat with Sergeant Ritter, okay? Before you pass a resolution, there might be some way we can, for example, put the stamp on the bill that goes out that, if you pay within the next 60 days, we'll accept half, or something like that, okay? I think that's what Commissioner Fleece was alluding to. Figure out how we might do something like that first before you allow us to do it, all right? If we can't come up with a way, well, then there's no reason for the resolution.
But I think
Part of the success of the program has been able, in the other counties, is to accept less, which is going to be more than nothing. So
We need the resolution that gives you the authority to even talk about a reduction of the payment.
Yeah.
We need that under any circumstances. I think.
Well,
But what the sheriff is asking is let them have an opportunity to see how they might make that work with their existing staff before you pass the resolution.
Without the
what would we do, is there
Without the resolution either?
something, a different way to collect less? I mean, we can just go back and, think on how we might be able to collect some of these at a reduced rate, and then come back and say, here's what we'd like to try, we need that resolution. Because obviously, this plan doesn't look like it's going to work, so that's fine.
Are all housing fees the same across the board?
The general housing fees and work release fees, yes.
And work release are the same? Have you ever thought about doing it on a scale attached to perhaps the employee or the prisoner's wage?
For work release fees, that's what we used to do.
Not work release. Across the board, you got some poor guy that comes in, did a no-no, he gets sentenced to a year, and he's making $7.50 an hour, and yet he's expected to pay whatever that is, and you got another guy that comes in that's there for 2 months, and he's making $60,000 a year. Why would we charge them the same?
The amount of time it would take to do wage verifications on every inmate that came through right now at an intake process would be incredible.
No, you have them bring the income tax.
They don't usually bring that with them.
They're in a firefight.
Standing right there.
I'll bet you the sheriff said pretty please.
we're not going to refuse them if they don't have their wage verification, so.
Carrie reminded me.
So are you suggesting we withdraw the motion and come back with another? I mean, I don't have a problem
I
approving the
understand
resolution.
that.
You can come
that
back
the
with a way
board's
how you're going to do it.
Not generally in favor of hiring somebody to do it that way, all right? This is just the way this has been done and been successful in other areas, so that's why we looked at it.
Right.
Maybe we can come up with something, and maybe we can't, okay? Maybe we can come up with a way that's different, all right? That might increase our revenues without increasing our costs.
Right. And I don't have a problem with the current resolution, and then you can come back and say, hey, this is how we're going to do it.
Well, we might not come back with something, part of it
Okay.
is, we might. So, I think you might have the cart before the horse.
So you're going to ask us to withdraw?
No, you can if you want.
Does the prosecuting attorney get involved with this? Do you need his approval in order to do some of this? I guess that's my big concern about this resolution, because he drew it up, and now they're giving you permission to do it. If we don't pass a resolution, then does that take away one of your tools in your toolbox?
Yes.
And so I think we need to pass a resolution.
I'm fine with the resolution.
To give them the tool to be able to work, to give them the tool in their toolbox to be able to do something with it. So I
We don't know what that's going to be yet.
Well, I know, but I think we need to give you the tool.
I can tell you from having visited the programs and watching the programs work, what make those programs successful is the ability of a person to sit down individually with an inmate and look at their finances one-on-one and determine those plans to make a manageable payment for an inmate to make that's not overtaxing and make them just walk away from it. And I can tell you, without the body, we don't have that. We don't have that ability.
I would just say that I think the automatic sunset, say if it was 2 years down the road or whatever, I don't think it'll be necessary. In 2 years, they're going to know whether it works or not. It'll sunset itself. They'll just come and say, hey, it's not working. So I don't see the need to add that.
Rob?
I can go with Dick on that. Now that we've got it pared down to just giving them the tools, and, maybe we can have some collaboration with the court collections, or, seek ways to use people we already have. We tend to build our silos even inside an organization, and I'd like to see us take a look at maybe we can break down some walls between departments and try to work together.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, and if you have to hire somebody, you put a minimum 6'5", 275. They'll collect money for you.
Is there any further discussion? We have a motion on the floor. Do you want to read it, or do you want to ask to try to? I guess I'll just. Motion to adopt the drafted resolution with the exception of striking the fifth whereas, which is that the county will hire a person. And, of course, it'll have to be numbered by the clerk, and it will say 2012 instead of 2011. Is there any further, is that acceptable to the motion and the second?
Yes.
That's correct.
We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Lemkool?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
No.
Please?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. So we've agreed to allow you the opportunity to negotiate the fee. How that's going to come, I'm hoping we'll see a plan within the next little while. Obviously, this has to be ratified by the Board of Commissioners at the meeting at the end of the month. So if somebody comes up with some brilliant words of wisdom between now and the 29th of February, we're only going to have one 29th of February this year, and then we won't have another one for 3 years, so.
Well, I don't know, like I said, we'll go back and, okay, this plan's not going to work, so is there
But
another way that we
at
can
least it
do
gives us an opportunity to make available to someone to reduce their fee. Jason?
Right.
I'd like to follow up before they leave, and I'd like to make the motion that we hire the employee to take care of this for $51,863 in wage and benefits to handle this task and make it a 2-year position.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have support?
Extendable?
Extendable, yes.
I'll support it.
What does extendable mean?
Extendable? You can keep them after 2 years.
Oh, okay.
You could do that anyway.
Or you have a motion,
I
you've
didn't
heard
say
the motion?
expendable. I said-
Any further discussion? Larry?
Yeah, I would just prefer to see if they can do something internally or collaborate with other departments, as Commissioner Henschel has indicated. If there's any way we can accomplish what we try to accomplish along with core recovery, maybe there's some concessions there we can give them along with their internal staff and what we have available within the county to see if another alternative can be made.
Well, the resolution we passed gives them the opportunity to at least give that tool to core recovery also.
Yeah, right.
They get it reduced to year to year versus.
Further comments? Roll call vote, please.
Public
Oh,
comment?
I'm sorry. Yep, sure.
I need to get to my microphone.
Yeah, that would barely be good.
Unless you're good at the sign language.
Andy Merrick, 2875 East Railroad Avenue. It was last week or the week before the sheriff was here, and I believe Commissioner Max Bauer asked about staffing levels and mentioned that they have not increased in, I don't remember the period of time, but we've had the same staff with the sheriff, which also covers the jails. You discussed briefly the possibility of looking at that. Hiring somebody full-time to do this position would give them the dedicated time to look at the ability to pay. So you're not creating an issue with an individual who doesn't have the ability to pay, where core recovery may just harass or bother an individual who may not have the means, which could cause, the same issues that you're concerned about. But you've got someone here locally in the community that's got a job now, that's got the interest in the community or the county at heart. And with the 2-year sunset, gives us the opportunity to see, does it or does it not work? And if that person is able to do other tasks at the sheriff's department as well, that may be another side benefit. Thank you.
Larry?
I would have a real problem with putting this employee on for the stated reasons earlier, but if the board was inclined to do that, maybe they'd consider hiring one of the 11 custodial staff that we let go.
10. Commission on Aging took one of them. 10.
No, I know, but we laid off.
I never
11.
failed to mention Commission on Aging.
And that bugs the living daylights out of me. We cut a whole department out. Now we're going to hire another person. I don't like that.
Further discussion?
I got to sleep at night.
Sure.
Good evening, Kevin Sandbig, 563 Lost Lake Road in Interlaken. And I just want to address Commissioner Lemkool with your comments on the child support, people there on child support. I guarantee you, probably right now, there's somebody in that work release facility here who's serving time for a child support warrant, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever. That individual is paying work release fees that you all set. He's in jail on the child support warrant, more than likely paying upwards to $30 per day to be in that work release facility. So I just want to make you aware that when they come to a work release facility like ours, they're paying every day to be there, along with their debt to the circuit court. So, but that's it. Thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Richardson?
No.
Thomas?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
No.
Fleece?
No.
Gilman?
Yes.
Inman,
No.
Henschel,
No.
Lemkool,
No.
Wheelock.
Motion fails.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Maybe we can find you some other way to find you some spare time, Todd.
I have a lot of it.
Okay, that brings us to Human Resources. Hi, Jen. You got it all
Hi.
figured
No, for the
out.
long topic.
Well, I know everyone's read my memo. So just a few other pieces of information, two memos from Dennis regarding the hiring process that he went through at Benton County, as well as another memo from him regarding the process for hiring a county administrator that were sent by email. And also, one of them's on your desk today. My initial thought with the memo was to lay a process down, lay some groundwork down so that way we could get this discussion going. Find out where we wanted to go, realizing that now it's February and we need to develop a plan going forward with the interview process. The initial screening, I am recommending for myself to handle that, obviously with your guidance in terms of what you would like to see on the evaluation criteria page. Every candidate would be screened based upon those, that criteria. That would narrow down the candidates approximately 10 to 15, and we would have a first round interview, recommending those be conducted by Skype. In the past, I've done telephone interviews, but these days we can do them electronically. And that would consist of other department heads and elected officials. Then the second and final rounds would be here in Grand Traverse County with a variety of interview panels. The citizen, a community leaders committee, county commissioner panel, and then elected official and department head panel, as well as an open citizen meeting the night that the candidates were here. As well as with this, I would also recommend that we have interview training for anybody that's going to be involved in the interview process. That would include yourself, that would include any department head, anyone that's going to be asking any questions to the candidates, so that way we do not ask anything that's inappropriate, and ensure that we are asking the right questions so we get the right answers from each of the candidates. And that is an overview, and I will open it up from there.
Larry? Well, if I can, as one of the original commissioners, and I think Commissioner Wheelock, Commissioner Thomas.
Come on,
Original?
the county's over 100 years old.
Original.
Back
there, yeah.
Original
Board of
commissioners that
Supervisors.
interviewed, the second county commissioner in our history. Thank you for that. Shouldn't use original. But anyway, it was myself, I think Commissioner Wheelock, Commissioner Thomas, and I don't know if Commissioner Lemko was here. But here was my recollection of how we did it. We hired a search firm. Search firm met with us, along with input from the departments as to the proper description that we were looking for, and the consultant gave us what we thought would be the proper range for to attract top-end candidates. We did the interview, or excuse me, we did the advertising. My recollection was we had somewhere close to 100 applications. The consultant that we worked with came, and you have to understand, we had a whole different system back then. We had 4 committees, and the Legislation Administration Committee was the interview committee, was the appointment committee, and that's what the board chose those applicants to go to, was that committee. So any other commissioner at that time was welcome into that meeting. The consultant came in with all of the applicants, all 100 of them, in a box, and the consultant said, based on my review of the applicants, these would be my top 20, all right, in terms of meeting the minimum qualifications of what you have given me in terms of criteria.
the LNA committee, that would be the Legislative and Administrative Committee, went through those 20 applications and narrowed them down to 10 to come back to the county commission. And maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong after I get done. But because my memory was that we narrowed down to 10, and at that point in time, the consultant would go back and talk to the 10 and say, are you still interested in in applying? They would have to make a decision at that point in time based on what the law provided a search firm to do, was the confidentiality, as long as, now, and according to Mr. Cooney, that's not the case now. And then they would make a decision whether they wanted to be publicly known as a candidate or not. And I think Commissioner Wheelock has corrected me. We didn't interview 10, I think we ended up interviewing 7. So we had 3 withdrawal from the deal. And then what we did is we came back to the county commission, or the rest of the board, and the board did have an opportunity, if they wanted to look at the other applicants that the consultant had, but they agreed with the recommendation from the LNA committee on the 10, and we got notice that 3 had withdrawn. So we decided to take that 7 and bring them in for kind of an orientation of the county. They had a chance to meet with all the department heads, and they brought their wives. We had a picnic over at Logan's Landing where we invited the commissioners and community leaders and the department heads, and it was a free-flowing meet and greet, talk, get to know you a little bit better situation. And then but there was a lot of interaction with the department heads prior to the interview process with the county commission with the 7 applicants. And then we supplied that with enough time. They were here for like 3 or 4 days, and we took care of their hotel expense, that kind of a thing, and reimbursed them for their expenses coming in. And then the consultant developed 20 questions, which we agreed were appropriate. And we had 2 evenings where we had interviews. I think one was 4 and one was 3. And the community at large, the department heads were free to make comments or remarks to commissioners personally or in public regarding how they felt about the 7 candidates. We interviewed the candidates, and we were given a ranking form by the consultant at the end of the second interview night, and each of us wrote down who we thought best met the criteria and who we wanted, and we ranked them 1 through 7. And when the commissioners ended up running them through, the clerk did the tabulation, and Dennis Aloya was unanimously number 1. And then the board made a motion to offer Dennis the job based on the consultant's recommendation for compensation. And I believe Dick Thomas went over that night, that evening, and signed the contract on behalf of the Board of Commissioners. So we did have, at that point in time, we did have a scaled-down version that involved county commissioners. And then after that scaled-down version, then we had sessions with department heads and community leaders. And it wasn't to the extent that Benton County had. The department heads didn't come into play until the Board of Commissioners actually scaled it down to what we thought were 10 and ended up being 7. And then they got involved, as well as the public and the community leaders. So that's the only difference really in the process that we had. When I went through the process when I sat on the Northern Michigan University Board of Trustees for the recruitment of the new president, we hired a consultant company, a search company. They came to us with the top 10 candidates. They narrowed it down to the top 10, and the board narrowed it down to the top 5 and brought the 5 in for a public process with the community, with all the department heads and the professors, and they were able to give feedback and comment cards to us or talk to us personally. Then we went through the interview process, and we did basically the same thing. We scored them out and we unanimously made a recommendation for Les Wong for president of Northern Michigan University, and signed a contract with him. So both processes worked out really smoothly, and that's the extent that I've played, I guess, in my public service in appointing a chief executive person or a president or a county administrator. So this Benton County and how Benton County did it is a little bit different. And I guess, it's like, okay, am I open to something new and different? I don't know. I'm assuming that since the department heads were involved in the early process, I don't understand why the commissioners weren't involved in the early process as well as the department heads, but obviously their process worked out well because they got Dennis, and we think Dennis was a pretty good guy. So, obviously their process worked, which was different than, the one that I have not been used to. But, and I kind of sketched out what I would think would be a good process, which was, and I have to commend Jen for giving us the information from Benton County and what she thought would be a good process, which was real close to Benton County, for a starting point and a discussion point. I know we all may have different viewpoints about, initially how we might want to do this and the timing of how we might want to do this. But I wrote this down before I got the recommendation from Jen, which is something very close, other than there's just a switch between when the department heads and the elected officials got involved. But I saw Jen as taking the role of the search firm, okay? She would take the applications and narrow them down to whatever number we wanted. It could be 15 to 20, for example. And then she would review those applications with the county commission. And then we would review those and narrow those 15 to 20 perhaps down to 5, but no less than 5 and no more than 10, based on what we saw as in scoring them out. And then from there, we would invite those applicants to come in for a meet and greet with department heads, an orientation of the county, have the department heads all have time to get to know the person and ask them questions of their style and how they govern and how they what their style of management is. And then I thought about, okay, then from there we would have a meet and greet process with the community leaders and the public, and they would be, and I watched the videotape from Benton County, and that's exactly what they did. Because it was online, part of it was online, is that each candidate, once they narrowed it down to, I think, 3 to 5, in their case, came in and did a personal introduction to the community and the department heads, and then they had so much time for Q&A, and then the commissioners were there listening. It was really kind of an educational process for the commissioners in Benton County. And then from there, my thought was then, once we went through that process, then we would come up with our, we would make sure we have our interview questions ready to go. And we would have those candidates come in, and if it's 5, then it's one evening. If it's 10 to 7, we have 2 evenings. And we agree on the questions, and then we would rank them based on the interview, and then and hopefully come up with a recommendation that evening. That's what I wrote down as before I got Jen's recommendation as a way of doing it, and I could see hers is just a little bit different, that she's suggesting that perhaps we don't play as much role up front in terms of the paring down, which was something different than I'm used to doing, and it's really kind of thinking maybe outside of the box, and it might be an appropriate way of doing it. I just haven't been involved in that type of process. I've been involved in the actual board working with the search firm and narrowing it down. And then once we narrow down the candidates for the interviews, then we involve the department heads, and then we involve the community, and then we get their input, and then we do our set of questions, and then we make our recommendation. So my thought process was just a little bit different in terms of order, but we're trying. I think either way we're going to get to the same end in terms of involvement with the community and the department heads. It's like, what order do you want them to be? But I would see Jen's role, as I understand it, as she's taken over, she would take the responsibility of the search firm, get all the applicants, and narrow it down to the number we want. And then she could bring those into us, and we can further narrow them down, and then we can involve the community and the department heads, and then go into interviews. That was how I thought we should do it. So.
Anyone else? Jason?
Did you get all that?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Thank you, Reverend.
You know, I'll tell you, no wonder we're going to take 8 months to find an administrator. You know, Commissioner Richardson had an email he put out earlier that kind of makes sense. I mean, it was in the process, and of course, you know, Jen's paring down the candidates, and I think I like the idea of, hey, you know, can we just see what's popped off into the trash, you know, and see if maybe you missed something we'd be interested in. I kind of like that, you know, and I don't mean trash, and I'm just saying what didn't make the cut.
13.
What didn't make the cut? Yeah, I like that as a part of it, but ultimately, I think when we get to that point where we're 5 to 7 candidates, to me, it's this extra process. There's so much of a process here that I think it's kind of unnecessary. A single interview to start with the commissioners. Public input, not necessarily public asking questions, just public input, public comment, and then we take a break for a couple days. We come back for a second set of interviews. Because then we have a chance to think about what they've said and then have the second set of interviews. Invite the community leaders, invite the other elected officials to be a part of the public comment, but frankly, beyond that, we're hiring the administrator. I mean, we don't need to make it any more complicated than that. Then take a break and then vote. Make our decision. It's that simple. I don't think we really need to add the extra panels and you know, I understand getting the desire to get the public input as far as asking questions. We have emails. We can forward those concerns. We're going to have some of those same concerns. It adds to the process, and it makes it a little, it convolutes a little bit more, but I think we need to simplify the process as much as possible. I think 2 commissioner interviews when we get down to that point where we're at 5 to 7 candidates, and that'd be sufficient. Rob?
I guess I'm not seeing the part where public gets to ask questions. Is that in here?
It's in here.
I see comment, but I don't see questions. Which section?
This would allow the public to ask questions of all the candidates that are being interviewed.
Citizen meeting.
Let me, I'm sorry, can I clarify what I meant by that?
Please do.
Okay. So the public would have an opportunity to provide questions. The questions would be provided by the public, but screened by myself or someone
good.
here ahead of time. So it wouldn't be
Well, I don't-
come walk in and ask questions, but the questions we would have, and we'd have, say, the interview candidates up here, and I would read a question, or one of you would read a question, and it would go, but they would all be questions from the public. So it wouldn't, and the public could come and attend, but they wouldn't be just getting up and asking
Thank you,
questions.
Jen. How many applications have you received so far?
About 30.
30. Mm-hmm. And do we have a deadline when we're not taking any more?
February 25th.
February 20th?
Correct. Yep.
And those are public information as of right now, I understand.
Unless someone has requested confidentiality.
Okay, and has anyone requested that?
I have one individual that has.
Okay.
What's his name?
Could be her. Could be a her.
Exactly.
I guess my comment would be that I think Grand Traverse County is a gem. It's a jewel of the North. It really is. We have something really special in our community. We have some brilliant leaders in our community. And the idea of bringing in people from the community, just like Benton County did, I think it's a great idea. You know, we've got a really active Chamber of Commerce. We've got all kinds of different boards and things going on, and I think it would be good to get some input there. Not to belabor the process, but, you know, as I was quoted in the paper, this is the most important decision this board is going to make, in my opinion. I mean, this is the person that when a split-second decision needs to be made, they're going to be making it, and all the things that don't come before us. And there's so many little ways that, fiscal accountability comes into play, that, the wrong decision could cost us tons of money, cost the taxpayers tons of money, or save. It could add efficiencies and service for our constituents. So I think it's important that we don't rush the process. I certainly don't want a revolving door situation like some other counties have been having. I want to do this right and take our time and get the input and the perspective.
Just one side note, if I could. The chamber did send us a letter, and hopefully got forwarded, that whatever assistance they could in terms of motivating community leaders to attend, if we have a community leaders evening, that they would help us assist in the invitation process and calling up the community leaders to get them to attend. So they wanted me to relay that message, that they would be happy to help us out in terms of getting folks to that meeting.
I guess at least from my perspective, Jen, I liked the process that you outlined. I think it's very good. I think somewhere in that 10 to 15 number, maybe I like to see the 15 and then I pick out the top 10 that I want to interview, and maybe we can do something that way and see whether there's a consensus. Maybe we see the top 15 and we choose we want to interview, say we want to interview 10. Each one of us picks out our top 10 and we end up interviewing 11. I don't know. But I don't know that we necessarily need to interview 15 to 20 people. I think that's too many. I'd like to keep the interview process down less than 10 people.
Right.
I do believe there's a place for department heads to have input, but it's truly not their decision. They're not responsible.
I agree.
We are.
I agree.
I
So,
agree.
I'm willing to hold these interviews in public, allow them to attend the interviews, and feel free to give me whatever input they want. But it is not their decision, it's not their responsibility. They are employees. This gentleman or lady is going to be their boss. And if you allow them to have a huge amount of input into the hiring process, you're going to lose some of that authority that the boss has, because they're going to say, I voted to hire you. And I don't want that. I truly believe that having the interviews available to them and for us to listen to their comments is important, but I truly do not believe it is their place to do the interview process. And the same thing with the public portion. I have no problem with engaging the public and taking their comment, but that comment comes back to us, not to the candidates, because it's our decision and we are responsible for it. Dick?
I think one thing we should all do is pay attention to the second paragraph in his memo from Dennis. I'll read it. One additional thing I would recommend is that county commissioner and interviewees' communication with the candidates be limited to their predetermined role. It would be inappropriate for commissioners or others to contact candidates outside the interview process. It should be avoided. Remembered.
Ross?
I generally like what Jen has produced here as far as the process goes. I do agree with you, Sonny, about, at the end, it's our decision. I mean, we can get all the extra input we want, but it is our decision, obviously, and no one else is responsible for that but the 9 of us. Jen, as you know, because I called you last Friday to complain about it, the only thing I wasn't sure about was the evaluation criteria and the assignment of points, and how, as you narrow the applications down to the 10 or 15 that you're going to present to us, how tied you were to that point system, and my fear that things that weren't that important would score a lot of points as opposed to things that I thought were more important. I still want to look at all the applications, or at least the ones that don't say they have a confidentiality thing. And I still like my idea that I expressed in my email today, that if one of us says, you know what, you didn't pick that person over there, but why don't you add it to the mix because they thought that person looks interesting, I think we should still have that ability. And it may be, I know, for instance, that Commissioner Max Bauer and Henschel and Gilman in particular were more interested in finding someone, for instance, from the private sector, had more private sector experience. And that person might not score very well on the point system you have. And it's possible that when you interview them, they may not score that well either in an interview. But for the ability to at least bring them past that first cut for further review, I think we should have that ability. And I certainly intend to come. I'm going to give you a call real soon to say, when can I come start reading resumes?
Chris?
You know, I have two things to say. Jen, expect a call from me as well, because I would like to read them as well. And Dean, you could save us a whole lot of time and trouble if you'd apply for this position.
Larry?
I will just tell you that when we were originally looking at the recommendation for the top 20 from the consultant, that there were 2 or 3 or 4 that we didn't think belonged in the top 20, and we did go back and look at the other applications that came in, and we looked at a couple of them. We said, you know, we think these 3 ought to be added to. So there was that flexibility back then, but it occurred at a committee level, not a committee of the whole. So, you know, I would be supportive of, you know, if I could just throw something on the floor for a motion and see how it goes, but I would move that Jen Seaman would assume the role of the search firm, and that would be to receive the applications and narrow the applications based on the criteria set by this board for the first round, no less than 15 and no more to 20, and then any commissioner would have an opportunity to review the applications and make a recommendation for someone to be added on their own accord, and that those applications would be reviewed by the county commission and narrowed down to no less than 5 and no more than 10, and that the candidates would be invited to Grand Traverse County for a orientation, meet and greet, and Q&A with department heads. And they would also have an event that would involve the community leaders and obviously any members of the public, because it would be a public meeting in the community. In both situations, commissioners can attend those meetings with department heads as well as the community leaders' public input process, and that if it is indeed up to the 10 candidates, if for example, the same situation could occur, you know, you could go down to 3 or 7.
You're losing it.
Yeah, I know. And that the remaining, yep, and that up to the 10 candidates are interviewed by the county commission in 2 evenings, 5 candidates each. Same questions are asked by the candidates, and that the commission is given a ranking form and at the end of the interview process to see if we can come up with a tally result for a board recommendation. So I'll make that motion.
You know,
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, could you? I mean, seriously, I think we could probably do this à la carte. We could literally approve each step, and it might make it a better, a more accurate process by the time it makes
I
it.
guess my point is, first, we've already given Jen the authority to do this.
Right.
Yes.
You know, I don't think there's any question in this room about that. So I'm not sure why we need the motion that we just heard.
Well, I wanted to give her a guidance for a number to bring back.
Well, I'm, at least from my perspective, I'm willing to approve the outline and the procedure by which she outlined in here, you know? The only thing that I would ask is that somewhere maybe from that 10 to 15, you give me the 15 candidates and let me have some input on which is the top 10.
All right.
What about,
And, you know, my recommendation, you know, you guys can do whatever you want. We can, you know, we have a motion on the floor, and I guess I have to ask if
It
we have a
hasn't been
second.
supported.
all right,
I moved that we just,
now what,
No.
now your motion, for example, your suggestion would
I'm
be...
not making the motion because
All right.
You
I
made the
can't do that
motion, there's
right
no
now.
support.
We had no support the way it
I mean,
was.
I would come back and make a motion that we support the recommendation from Jen Seaman with the exclusion that, that the narrowing down of candidates do not involve county commissioners, elected officials, and department heads. That she just narrow those down and bring those back to us for consideration.
Down to the number of 10 to 15 that's
Yeah.
outlined in the outline.
Right.
Well, that's the
What the
procedure by
outline
which
says.
she outlined.
that's here.
It's all
But
right
she's
there.
got, no, she's got the
No, under
the
first
panel. She
round.
has the panel.
Read first round, Sonny.
The first initial round, she has
Third
the
bullet.
she has the department heads and elected officials narrowing those down.
No.
No.
Yes, you
No.
do.
No, I don't.
It's not the way I read it.
During the initial screening process, I would hold interview training, okay.
First round interviews,
That's
this
just
round would be
training.
approximately 10 to
Training only.
15 candidates.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We never touch it until we get to 15
Oh, I'm sorry.
candidates.
The first round interviews do not include the commissioners, they include a panel of department heads and elected officials.
You
And
want, just give me
I
a
mean,
second.
that's
You
what
wanted
I
to have
object
comment?
to.
Yeah, I just, I'm sorry, Noel McNeil, 2875 East Railroad Avenue, Interlochen.
Point of order, do we have a motion on the floor?
We don't need public comment.
Yeah, we don't need public
Well,
comment.
we've agreed to allow a public to have comment during anything that we were discussing in the
Correct.
agenda.
We haven't got a
After our
motion.
discussions.
After our discussion.
We don't have a motion.
There's no,
I mean, I think you should
Support it.
take the
Sounds like
public
there's a
comment, but I
motion.
think we're a little premature.
Yeah, I would suggest,
Okay, all right, let's wait till we get to the motion.
no
and then
disrespect,
we'll
but
come-
I just,
Okay. Do we have a motion? Do you want, so is your motion to approve the guidelines as outlined by the HR director?
with the exclusion of item number, on first round interviews, that it's excluding department heads and other elected officials within
The
the county.
third bullet point.
The third bullet point.
Excluding
It would just, the
that?
panel
So no
would consist of myself, that's what I would say. Then I'm fine with the rest of it.
Well, wait a minute now, we're,
Now, as I understand it, that first
Who
round
are
of interviews
elected
is going to be
officials, I
that,
guess, is the
is
question.
going to be that 10 to 15
We
people.
are elected officials.
I want to have input at that point.
Right.
sometimes we refer to.
So
them as
that means
Yes.
that, and I am an elected official, so I want to have input at that point. Jen, can you explain to us exactly where you thought that was going to be at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. First, by elected officials, I'll be honest, I wasn't including you, and the reason being is for confidentiality purposes. I spoke with Bob Cooney, and one of your main concerns last time I was here was ensuring confidentiality to the applicants to the greatest degree possible. And Bob told me that if when you are involved, any of the commissioners are involved in the interviews, then it becomes an open meeting. And so the confidentiality would take until the second round.
That's not.
If you guys want to
the
be,
ship has sailed.
That was not the
Okay.
impression I got.
No, that's not the impression at all. I mean,
No.
yep,
it was discussed, and I think I remember Sonny said it the best. It's like, it's the nature of the beast. If you're going to apply for
Right.
a public job, it's going to be public.
Right.
I'm not saying they're not FOIA-able, I'm saying two
When you get
different
to 10 or
things.
15, it's like, we take all the shutters off the windows and the light flows in.
But I'm saying that, and I'm not saying it's not FOIA-able, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the interview would be a closed meeting. The public would not be invited, there would be nobody else invited to that meeting.
When we're down to the 10 and
so
15,
that's-
it's all open, okay?
No.
No, it has to be. At that point, it's all
If you guys
open.
are involved,
Right.
correct. If
Right.
and that's why I was
I don't think
recommending
there's
where I
any
was
concern by
going.
any of us here that it wouldn't be open.
Yeah.
Correct. I'm explaining why I recommended that, because last time I was here, confidentiality was a concern.
That was-
So I was trying to.
That was by one commissioner.
Yeah, it was by me, but that ship sailed.
And then at the end of the meeting, we just said,
Finish your sentence, please.
at the end of the meeting, we said, we're just going to drop this confidentiality problem. This is going to be an open public process.
I was trying to work out a
Right.
happy medium, if you will, to provide greatest degree of confidentiality as possible throughout the process. That's all I was trying to do here, based upon our last conversation. I clearly understand that that's not something that you are in agreement with, and that's fine. I was being completely honest with where I was going with this. You know, so that's all I was intending there. Now, after the discussion today, it sounds like if you want to narrow it down to the top 10, 15 candidates, and I can present those to the board, and then you can narrow them down from there, we might not even need a first-round interview, if that's what you guys are looking at. So that would also be a second recommendation or solution as well.
I have one other question, if I may. I don't want to deliberate this thing, but I'm confused about this second round thing. It seems to me that, you know, if we're going to, the second round would involve department heads and elected officials, and then it would also involve community leaders, and then it would involve the county commissioners actually doing the interview and then making the decision. I don't see us having a panel and then going through this other process and then coming back and having interviews again and making a decision.
Chris?
I agree with Sonny when it comes to involving department heads. I'm extremely reluctant to do that for the reasons that Sonny stated. Why don't we take this one step at a time?
Yeah.
And we don't have to make all these motions tonight. You know, let's just decide on the initial screening process. And after we go through the initial screening process, then we can decide how to handle the first round interviews, and then we can decide, I mean, using Jen's outline as a guide. And I would like to hear, Jen, your honest opinion of that suggestion, because if I'm, you know, all wet, tell me.
I don't have a problem with that. I just was bringing this forward, again, to
Oh,
some
I know.
direction with the process. So however you guys think is best to do that, if you want to do it in pieces.
Rob?
Jen, you did a great job, just so you know.
Yes.
Each of us represents between 5,000 and 10,000 people, and we all take it very serious, so let us bat it back and forth and don't take it personal, please. I would agree with Commissioner Richardson's earlier comments. I will clarify that I do not have a preference for a private sector person, but I don't have a preference against them either. I just to clarify my personal stance.
I didn't mean that you all
Okay.
had a preference. You were interested in trying to expand the definition.
Yes.
To be a little broader than just somebody who'd worked
Okay.
at a county of this size or something.
I just wanted to be clear. I'm interested in equal footing with private sector.
Sure, I understand.
I think we're pretty close to what we want, even though it seems kind of up in the air still. But I think, Jen, narrowing it down to the 10 or 15 with, as Commissioner Richardson suggested, the option for commissioners to read through them, and if there's one,
That's fine.
to recommend throwing one
I like that.
back in.
Did you make that motion?
I would like to, unless, Dean, you have something urgent before I make that motion?
No.
Okay. I would like to make the motion that we accept this process as presented with the clarifications that Jen will narrow it down to the first 10 or 15 and give each individual commissioners the option to move one forward if they feel they're especially qualified.
Support.
Further discussion.
Now we have.
Well, Dean,
we can
did you want to
take
add something?
comment.
Briefly, Dennis and I both reviewed this. Jen actually put the process together, and we were both in agreement with this. On that, in the middle of the page, the first round interviews, we were lending support with a panel of department heads and elected officials, not including the Board of Commissioners, so that we could assist Jen in providing you with 5 to 7 or 10 candidates that we thought, after she did her part, would be the ones that you would want to do the more detailed interviews with. So I am totally in support of what she has put together here. We were involved. Obviously, she did all the work, and Dennis and I said, we think this is a good process. So I just don't want her to take all the heat for
Right,
this.
and I guess
There's no heat. No heat.
The intention of my
I know
motion.
you're saying that, but
My motion. The intention of my motion is that she could handle that. I mean, we're just saying for her to put that together and that, whatever that looks like.
Larry?
Well, first of all, I agree that, number one, department heads and elected officials, I mean, she narrows it down to 10 to 15, brings them to us. What I don't understand is why are we having a county commissioner panel as the first part, and then getting elected officials and department heads to have a panel, and then community leaders to having a panel? It seems to me we would want to be present, because that's what his recommendation is.
Go ahead, Rob.
His recommendation is to approve this memo.
I think, Rob, are you just talking about the
No,
initial
he's
screening
approving,
process? Or you're talking
your
about the whole
motion is to
thing?
approve this memo with those exceptions.
Is your motion for just the initial screening process?
Yeah, that's...
No, your motion was to approve
Or are you taking the
recommendation.
whole thing?
That was your motion on the floor.
Yeah, that is what I
The
said.
whole thing.
Yeah, so...
I'll withdraw my support. Sorry, Rob.
I mean, I would go with your suggestion that we have a department head panel, they can visit with them, if their departments have a panel, they can have a community leaders, public process panel, and then the commissioners come in and do the
I thought we were taking it piece by
interviews.
piece here, per
Well,
what Matt's...
I mean, I
I
would...
thought we were taking,
said.
I thought it was the initial thing only that we were going to do.
All right.
And so I was in support of that, but
All
I'm
right,
not.
I'll make a motion that we recommend...
Wait a minute, we have a motion and a second. We withdraw the
No,
second?
I withdraw. They
the
withdraw.
motion?
It's all withdrawn.
Okay, now
right.
we can try one.
I'll make a motion that we accept the initial screening process and accept this first round screening interviews with the exception of removing other department heads and elected officials. And the other parts we will decide at a later date.
And commissioners get to,
Allow commissioners...
And allow commissioners to look at applications, just make an appointment with Jen's office and...
I'll second that.
They can just review them.
So if I understand it,
and we can add one if we
you're
want.
approving the initial screening process and the first round interviews, but striking that third bullet point that involves department heads and elected officials.
Correct. And adding a point that commissioners can
Beg your pardon.
can review
Commissioners
applicants
can
that are on
review
file.
applications.
Yep, that is my understanding.
Okay. I promised you opportunity after I had emotions.
Time these people come and meet us, they'll all withdraw.
Noel McNeil, 2875 East Railroad Avenue, Interlochen. Jen, why did you choose this? I mean, I hear everybody asking and saying, putting in their opinion, but nobody's actually asked you why you chose this wording and why you have chosen this format. And I feel your frustration because you have put a lot of time and effort into this, and I think that, and my frustration for you was that you weren't given time to speak. You were cut off constantly, so I apologize for that. But I would like to hear why you actually chose this format and the wording that you used.
The wording that I don't,
Like you, for instance, you did explain that the reason why you used the word elected official, so that was explained, but was there any other thing that you needed to clarify? Does that
no,
seem...
I outlined this process because honestly, someone said, think outside the box. I can't remember who said that, but in innovative, that's a lot of the way that I think. I'll be honest, I try and think of different and creative ways that we can do something, that we can take a different approach. I understand the process that we went through 10 years ago, but it was 10 years ago, and so I wanted to try and come up with a different way to involve different people, to have input from various sources. I fully understand that the commissioners are responsible for making the decision. I thought that the input of community leaders and department heads would help them in making their decision, and that's where I was coming from with that information, because we have a lot of experience here that in department heads that could assist, and then with Doug Luciani sending a note that he would be willing to offer the chamber to help with that process, so. And then I already explained the confidentiality, and that's kind of where I was heading with that, but understand that's off the table now.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any commissioners have additional comments?
I hope
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Okay. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Lemkool?
No.
Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wheeler?
Yes. Okay, so we have approved the initial screening process and the first round process. Jen's going to get it narrowed down to 10 to 15 people. Anyone choosing to look at the things in between can have some input as to who those 10 are, right?
Absolutely. Can I just ask a clarifying question for myself?
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll try to get you.
Anytime.
Please do.
Are we still doing first-round interviews? Did we strike other department heads and elected officials, so this sentence ends, the panel would consist of myself?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
so under those circumstances, we don't need first round interviews per se.
I guess that's what I'm asking. Do you, am I
Just narrow it down to
supposed-
10 to 15
Just narrow it
candidates.
Just
That's all
narrow
we
it down
want.
without
Why do
interviewing
you-
them?
Well, let's say that you pick, let's say you pick 14, and I add one, and Commissioner Max Bauer likes somebody that you didn't pick, and that adds one, and then maybe someone else picks one. So now we have, say, 17 candidates. With those 17 candidates, what do you think you should do? Do you think you should conduct Skype interviews before you narrow it down further? Or what?
Yes, that's what I
Okay.
was recommending, because if there are 17 candidates, then it would be, I don't think we should bring them all to Grand Traverse County.
no.
And
No,
so that's
we
why I was
agree.
recommending to do the
Right.
Skype interviews with that large of a number. But I'm also, if we don't have that large of a number, I suppose I could come back to you and say there's really only 10 top candidates, and so maybe we could bring all those
And then
here.
if we wanted to just sit in on the interviews, we could? How would you feel about that?
So I am, if I'm doing phone interviews, to have,
No, I thought we were talking Skype interviews.
I guess I would have a one-on-one Skype interview. Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I would
Well, if you think
you
it's a
would
bad
be-
idea, say so. and, you know.
Yeah.
No, usually you
Yeah.
use Skype to have, it's just
All right.
one-on-one, it
I
just
just soon have her
seems a
just
little-
narrow it down to 10 to 15.
I guess at least from my perspective, Jen, what I would like to see is you get it narrowed to that 15, or maybe it's 17, as Ross has outlined. Give me the 15 interviews, and then let the 9 of us decide which 10 of these 15 people that we want to personally interview. And I'm personally
And
fine.
then we'll set the process we want to work with the community.
Then we'll do, one-on-one interviews with those 15 people, or those 10 people. I'd like to see it come out of your office with 15 candidates, give or take 1 or 2, one way or the other, and then give the 9 of us all of those, and we'll sit down and read those 15 interviews, and we'll come up with the top 10 candidates that we want to personally interview.
Okay.
And then from there, we can decide.
And from there, we can decide whether
Department heads, community
okay, look,
leaders.
we can't get it narrowed down to 10, we're still at 12, well, then maybe we do a Skype interview and then try to get it to 6.
Right.
I
just soon have her come.
But I'd
Have her
like to
do
see
it.
it come out of your office down to about 15 people.
Right. No more than
Jason?
15.
I'd just like to add that if we do see somebody who's been cut, and we go to add it, I think it just behooves us to have a really good reason to add that person.
I agree.
Make it known at least where
I
we...
mean, it may not even happen.
Yeah, exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
it's totally theoretical.
Right. Very good.
Chris?
Jen, how many applicants do we have from out of the state of Michigan?
I would have to guess.
And that's fine, guess.
10
Okay.
That's not bad.
Out of 21?
out of 30.
Out of 30, so a
And that's a
third.
complete guess.
Well, it tells
I
me...
really don't read the name and look, I really don't.
Well,
when they-
the reason I asked the question
Read the resume.
is it tells me that we're getting the message
We are.
out.
We are.
And I have another question. I completely agree with the second paragraph of Dennis's memo saying that we should not contact candidates outside the interview. However, I want everybody to know that I am publicizing, I mean, I've been calling county administrator friends of mine who are not interested in the job, but know people who might be. So I am making phone calls and sending emails saying, if you know, that's all I'm saying, is if you know of anybody, we have a job opening. But I want everybody to know that I am not having one-on-one conversations with applicants, not doing that, won't do that. But I am sending out messages saying, come one, come all, if you're interested, please apply.
Larry, you had a question?
Yeah. What type of process do you have that a candidate of Dennis Aloya's caliber would not be included? He would fall through the cracks and we wouldn't interview a person like that. Do you have a method or a methodology that a guy of Dennis's caliber would be interviewed, or a woman?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I had attached some criteria.
It's right here.
Which
Yeah.
which I understand I'll be discussing with Ross in more detail. Which is fine, which is totally fine.
And me.
And Chris, if we want to do that together, that'd be great. So Dennis would get a immense amount of points with this process. No one like of Dennis's caliber, I could not foresee falling through the cracks whatsoever.
Yeah, but you're looking at a piece of paper.
That would detail their education, experience, qualifications on it.
If they're doing a very thorough job of completing their application, we should have enough information to objectively catch those candidates. I mean, if they do a lousy job of, which I've seen some, I haven't looked at any of these, but in other processes, they're going to have to put the effort into it and give us the information that we need. We should capture.
I think she'll have.
I think we're good.
She'll work it.
I think we'll be fine. Okay, let's bring us to unfinished business. On your desk this evening was a draft resolution that will appoint William Rokas to be reappointed to the Building Authority for a 6-year term. Bill Rokas, County Treasurer, and John Syke, County Planner, reappointed to the Land Bank Authority. And confirming that Dean Bott will serve as the representative of the County Administrator on the Land Bank Authority and the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority and the Dams Implementation Team 3 years through 2013.
Move to approve?
I have a motion by Henschel, supported by Limprey, to approve these appointments. Is there further discussion?
Did you mention Gilman?
Right. We
appointed
Commissioner
him
Gilman.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
you
was
gotta
on-
give him a term.
You have to give him a term.
Yeah, we didn't give him a term before.
Oh.
Gilman will
Have to
be
sunset him.
appointed through 2012. That's the end of his election term.
2012 was this year.
Right.
Right.
But that is the end of your elected term. If you
Right.
are
Correct.
seated on that board as a county board representative, you can't be the county board's representative unless you're reelected. So-
Correct.
Correct.
So if you
It's
are
true
to
with all of
continue
us.
In 2000, well, yeah, and it's the same thing. We all know that Bill Rokas is not going to run for reelection, so, he's not going to do it in 2013. Okay? We have a motion made and seconded to approve Bill Rokas, Dean Bott, and Jason Gilman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We have no new business on the agenda. This brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make comment at this time? Seeing none. Commissioner committee reports?
I've got a good one. At the last Northern Lakes Community Mental Health Board meeting, we approved a new program for people in our 6-county region. And this probably won't mean a lot to most of you if you aren't familiar with autism. But we approved a program where we'll provide applied behavioral analysis therapy which is covered by Medicaid, it just previously has not been offered, to children with autism. And this has been a huge, huge thing at the state level. I've been trying to get a bill through so that insurance companies would offer that, and they haven't been doing it, but I've actually been talking about it for almost a year, and finally, there's no reason not to offer it. It's an extremely effective therapy, increases the functionality of autistic children a lot. Some of them even lose their diagnosis of autism. So, really cool breakthrough for people with autism in the family, especially young 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. Give them a little bit of hope. And this is something that, we are the mental health provider for Medicaid, and yet we weren't offering something that Medicaid pays for, and it just didn't make any sense not to offer it. And,
absolutely.
finally,
Well, congratulations.
we pushed it through. It was a huge victory. So, good things are happening over there.
Is this the redefinition of autism?
Autism spectrum disorder, correct.
But they're redefining it. Is that correct?
No, this is not.
I'll give you an example. It's just like sugar diabetes. A little while ago, the lobbyist, drug company lobbyist, managed to convince congressional people to lower the standard. So now you've got millions of people that are diabetic that a year ago weren't. Or vice versa, in the autism. And I happen to have a grandson that has autism. And so, and all I know about it's what I read in the news, but I would be, if what I heard in the news is correct, I'd have a real concern with that.
So what you're saying is the increase in autism may simply be a change in the definition rather than an increase in occurrences?
No, I'm saying the obvious increase we've got to change the definition so we have less of those children, and I don't know what you're going to call them, but they still have autism. It's kind of like a duck. It looks like a duck, walks like a duck, it is a
Changing
duck.
it the other way though, Larry, and making it to where there's more. I think they're changing the criteria where there's actually
There's
more
actually
that
arguments on
qualify.
both sides of that, but this isn't the place for that argument.
Right.
But I don't, if you ask my opinion, I don't think that's what's happening.
Any other commissioners with reports this evening?
Other than I would like to, again, echo Rob's comment that, Jen, you did a great job in presenting that information, and please don't take it personally about, some of our differences of opinions, and I know in the end it'll work out just perfect, so, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Move for adjournment?
Anything else? Any notices or appointments? I apologize for last Thursday night because somehow or another I didn't have the strategic planning session on my calendar.
I wondered about that. I said, I'll bet you forgot to
And I
write it
was here
down.
Wednesday night and nobody mentioned it. I was sitting in my own little corner of my office at 9:30 at night, so
Yeah, well.
stuff happens.
Do you want to make any changes?
I haven't seen it yet.
Cat licenses.
All right.
Licenses.
I'll entertain a motion for adjourn.
So moved.
All gone. Thank you, everyone.
Cat license.